Very pleased that to be joined here at SB Nation by the one and only, the legendary, the iconic, the internationally famous. You know him, you love him. He will be a Pro Football Hall of Famer this time next year. It is Drew Brees. Drew, thanks so much for taking the time to join us at SB Nation.
Yeah, man, great to be with you.
How's
it going?
I was nervous about doing this, if I'm being honest with you, Drew, because I when it came down to grad school for me, I was down to two options, and it was the University of Florida, which I chose, and Purdue. So I feel like I let you down. You know what I mean? I feel kind of awkward right now.
Well, some people would say that Florida is the Harvard of the South, so, maybe you chose wisely, but Purdue being the Harvard of the Midwest. So you had two good options.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like I couldn't go wrong either way. And I feel like we all sort of do math in sports, right? Like, I don't know, like, you remember a phone number, you remember like somebody's jersey number, things like that. And so when I was doing the math, it was like, well, I could go Tim Tebow, I could go Drew Brees, you know what I mean? Like, that was how I was processing it, if that makes sense to you.
Totally. I think that's what we love about football, and the way it brings out a certain school spirit, and a lot of people, I think, choose where they go to school in large part based on the football programs and kind of the school spirit that derives from that. So yeah, those two obviously have pretty strong traditions when it comes to sports.
On the subject of traditions, I've seen you sing the Purdue fight song on television a number of times. You are a proud Purdue alum, and I think that's very cool. And I think that everybody should kind of wear their school on their sleeve that way. To get to why you're here, first off, you are sort of embracing a challenge within the entire Big Ten, and certainly challenging Purdue in the name of something incredible, which is donating blood.
Yeah. So this is a great partnership between Abbott, which is one of the healthcare leaders in our country, and the Big Ten Conference. There's a huge shortage in regards to blood donations, and so we're encouraging everybody between now and December the 5th to donate blood, get out and donate blood, and especially amongst the Big Ten family. All 18 Big Ten schools are now competing. So whether you're a fan of those schools, a student, alumni, a parent, whatever, we're encouraging everybody to get out, donate blood, and then go to big10.org/Abbott and register that you donated blood. You'll get a free kind of home field T-shirt with the school that you kind of donated on behalf of, and the school that donates the most blood will receive $1 million towards student and health initiatives in their community. So obviously there's something at stake here, but more importantly, it's about donating blood. Basically, all the blood donated, 25% of that goes to cancer patients. 1 in 83 women who give birth will be in need of blood. Somebody needs blood every 2 seconds. Your one donation of blood has the ability to save up to 3 lives. So it's amazing when you start looking at the statistics and the impact that being able to donate blood, the benefit it serves our communities.
I think that's really noble and a really awesome way to kind of lean into football season and the rivalry within, conference schools and whatnot. And to have a little bit of a football payoff, of a fan payoff is a nice twist to a good cause. I have a lot of NFL questions to get to, but on the collegiate note, the SEC takes a lot of conference pride. Do you feel any kind of way about the fact that the Big Ten has won the last 2 national championships? Penn State's a popular pick to win it this year. Like, is there something about, I mean, you obviously would rather Purdue win it, you know what I mean? But is there something about you that is saying this is kind of cool? The Big Ten is having I would say a moment, but it's much longer than that.
Yeah, look, there's I think the Big Ten and the SEC have always kind of sat, atop. Obviously there's been schools like Clemson, that had a great run out of the ACC, and schools like USC and others that have had great runs out of the Pac, Pac-10, Pac-12. But now we stole 4 of those guys to become part of the Big Ten, right? So the Big Ten is 18 teams, and they're 18, pretty stout teams, especially when you look across all sports. Not just football, but of course basketball and many others. We contend for national championships each and every year. And I think just now the coast to coast reach of the Big Ten Conference, I think from a recruiting perspective, from a, broadcast viewership perspective, and I think just from a pride perspective, you see so many Big Ten athletes, student athletes, but then just, students, alumni, those universities going and doing pretty incredible things, across all industries. So I think it's something we all take pride in. Yeah, I take pride in being a Purdue alum. Absolutely. Right. More astronauts into space and to the moon than any other university. They've thrown more touchdown passes and won more games in the NFL than any other school. Did you know that?
I did not. I did know the astronaut thing. But
Yeah, on the forefront of cancer research and nanotechnology. I mean, I'm obviously I could spit off a lot of facts about Purdue, but I think just I take a lot of Big Ten pride as well, and excited to see our conference continue to grow and thrive.
That's very cool. So if it isn't obvious, Drew, from an NFL slant, I cover the Dallas Cowboys. But that means I have an extensive history with Kellen Moore on the subject of college football, one of the most decorated players on that level, and has always, the book on him has always been he's going to be an amazing coach. And we've seen that bear itself out, helping the Eagles win the Super Bowl in the Superdome of all places. We're chatting one day after the Saints named Spencer Rattler the starting quarterback for the season. There's all sorts of chatter around the Saints, and, I don't mean to put pressure on you with, talks of tanking and things like that, but your thoughts on New Orleans as they get set for what is clearly a new era, clearly kind of a new regime in a literal sense, but potentially a new approach to football for the first time in a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, look, New Orleans has all the makings of being a great team and having a great season. I think they have an impressive roster that's a mix of some really talented young guys, some really solid veteran guys, especially leadership on the defensive side. Guys like Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, that are still playing at a really high level. I think they have one of the best offensive lines in the game. They've spent a lot of their high draft picks over the last few years really building that. They're really talented at the skill position. 2 wide receivers that can blow the top off in Olave and Shaheed. Alvin Kamara, one of the most dynamic backs in the league. So really, just you'd say the unknown is just the quarterback position because you've got a bunch of young guys that just don't have a lot of experience. Spencer Rattler, I thought, did some good things last year. Unfortunately, we were decimated by injury, so he was playing with a lot of guys that, were kind of new to the offense, new to the system. And so was he. But I think he's very talented. I think he can do a lot of things. I think he throws the ball really well. I think he's a dynamic player. Tyler Shuck, they went out and drafted in the second round. Tons of college experience, obviously not a lot of NFL experience. We'll see how this whole thing plays out. I'm sure he'll be ready to go. He's got incredible QB developer in Kellen Moore as the head coach and the play caller. So, I mean, look, anything can happen. I mean, I don't think anybody in the division really scares you that much.
Right.
Yeah, Tampa's won it the last couple of years, but they're, to me, they're not a world beater. I know Atlanta is trying to make a run. Look, Bryce Young was impressive in the way he finished the season last year in Carolina. So to me, the division is wide open. Like there's no real favorite in the division. Anything can happen, and I think the Saints have as good a chance as anybody.
Yeah, to your point, that you got to win the division and you're in, right? Like you can be 14-3 or you can be 7-10 at this point and win your division. And if you're in, that's all that really matters. And so that's a good way of kind of boiling it down and looking at it from that particular perspective. I mentioned when I introduced you, Drew, that at least in my estimation, and I don't mean to put pressure on you in this sense, that you'll be a Pro Football Hall of Famer next year. I have to imagine that there's some level of emotion at least behind knowing that this is your final year of having to wait for eligibility. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's an improper assumption, but if it were me, if I were one of the most decorated pastors in NFL history and went to the school with the most astronauts of all time on the moon, I would think about those things. I'm curious if that runs through your mind.
Yeah, you know what? Not until recently. And I actually went to the Hall of Fame this year to celebrate and support Antonio Gates.
Right.
He was a teammate of mine with the Chargers. And so I got to see a bunch of my, former Charger teammates there and obviously celebrate, Gatesy going into the Hall of Fame. But then also just, be a part of all the festivities. And, you realize what a unique club that is to be a part of. And, there's so much history of the game that's involved in that and all the guys that, you're kind of riding on the backs of, as we played our careers and now those that are coming after us. Right. So, to even be considered in that category is a great honor. I didn't really let my mind go there until, this year, obviously now that I'm eligible. And so we'll see how it plays out.
That's a really great answer, but I leave it at that. I don't want to, make it too uncomfortable for you. I mentioned, Drew, that I cover the Cowboys. It's possible that you'll call the Cowboys game on Christmas Day. You're obviously
I
working
hope so. Yeah.
And so, first of all, I've interviewed DeMarcus Ware a few times, and I've asked him for his most memorable sacks, and he always brings up getting you in 2009. That wasn't on Christmas, but it was close.
Yeah.
And it was it was a good year for you. I think you would agree, but I imagine that was a sour night. And I'm just curious for your recollection of that game and the whether or not losing that alleviated any kind of pressure because you all were undefeated at that moment in time.
Yeah, we were 13-0. That was a Saturday night game, primetime game. We're playing the Cowboys at home. Obviously, they were a good team. They ended up going to the playoffs that year, but we felt like, hey, this is this could be a tough game, but one in which we want to keep the streak going. Obviously, we're chasing the 72 Dolphins at this point.
Right.
Here's what I remember about that game, especially DeMarcus Ware. So the week before, which again, we're on a short week, 6 days, Sunday. DeMarcus Ware goes down in the game that they played previously with a neck injury, like literally carted off the field. And so I'm sitting there watching the game like, man, I know DeMarcus, I hope he's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I mean, there's no way he's going to play against us, right? And so we set our whole game plan where we're just worrying about Anthony Spencer on the other side. And there's going to be no DeMarcus Ware. And then we walk out for the coin toss, and out trots DeMarcus Ware, looking like a spring chicken. I'm like, how is this guy out here 6 days later after getting carted off the field with a neck injury? And he just had this look in his eye like, man, I'm ready to go. And it's like, oh, boy, like we're in trouble. Not only do they got one of the best pass rushers in the league, but we didn't even prepare that he was going to play. So obviously that was a good night for him and not a good night for us. They ended up beating us. But we went on and won the Super Bowl. So I guess we had the last laugh.
As a Cowboys fan and a younger one at the time, there was a huge like badge of honor behind like we were the first to knock them out. You know what I'm saying? It was cool, and in a weird way, I was sort of rooting for you all to win the Super Bowl. So it worked out for everybody. You know what I mean? As approaching, you said that you were hoping that you would call the Cowboys game. The Cowboys are a massive stage. I'm curious, like, behind why you said that, why you would want to call the Cowboys, because there are obviously multiple options.
First off, I grew up in Austin, Texas, right? And when I was a teenage boy, like that was the Cowboys' heyday, right? That was the Aikman, Irvin, Emmitt Smith, and those 3 out of 4 Super Bowls, the dynasty. And so, man, I loved watching the Cowboys. Wake up every Sunday morning on Fox, and I'm watching the Cowboys, right? And then the irony is, I end up going to the NFL, and all I wanted to do was beat the Cowboys at that point. But no, look, I have a lot of respect for the organization. There's a lot of nostalgia there for me as a kid, watching the game and falling in love with the game, watching them. I've been watching the Netflix series now, on the Cowboy dynasty. But look, I love to call that game. Number one, I think obviously there's one of the better rivalries in all of NFL football is Commanders and Cowboys. 2 really good teams that have high hopes for their season. It's going to be end of the year. Hopefully there's a lot at stake with that game. One of my great friends, mentors, former coaches, Brian Schottenheimer. He's my quarterback coach with the Chargers, is head coach with the Cowboys. And man, I love watching those 2 quarterbacks. So we'll see where they're at that point in the season. But man, I really hope I get a chance to call that game because I think I'll be able to bring a lot of insight to it as well.
A lot of people did draw comps from Dak Prescott to you early in his career as he was kind of becoming who he became. And so that is just kind of another subplot narrative. Good tie-in with Netflix, by the way. The documentary series, The Game, is on Netflix. I do have to say, Drew, it is people say, like, don't meet your heroes. Not every NFL player, NFL legend, like, totally loves football or totally loves the NFL, but it is so cool that you remember that game was a Saturday night. It was primetime. It was on NFL Network. I remember that vividly. That was when there was all this discussion and debate about the NFL Network exclusive games and how can you do that and blah, blah, that you recall the Cowboys being on Fox. Like, my last question is just, you seem like somebody who loves not just football, but the NFL and all the tangential elements of it and what make it what it is, the pageantry, the epicness, the pomp and circumstance. Is that read that I have on you correct, I guess, is my weird question.
Yeah. Look, I love the game. Just the game of football in general, I think really molded me in so many ways into who I am. helped me develop a lot of traits, attributes, values along the way. The teams I had a chance to be a part of, the coaches I had a chance to be coached by, the teammates that I had, lots of moments of inspiration along the way, that came as a result of the game. And then now, no longer playing it in the NFL, but just being, a super fan. I have boys now that grow up,
Right.
Watching and trying to emulate a lot of the guys that are playing on Sundays now. I'm in fantasy leagues with all of them, and they try to poach all my players because I feel like I've got the inside scoop on the guys that I like and want on my team. But yeah, and just relationships too. A lot of the guys that or my former teammates are now coaches in the NFL. The Dan Campbells and the Aaron Glenns and all these guys that are kind of the next generation of great head coaches in the NFL and incredible humans and great leaders. So that just makes the game even more fun because there's just a lot of people to root for.
That's awesome. Well, to balance things out, Drew, you ruined that night for me in 2006 when you all visited Texas Stadium on Sunday Night Football. It was a bummer. I was so pumped about that game, and I was really upset at school the next Monday. So appreciate it. You know what I mean? That was a tough time for a young RJ Ochoa. Big10.org/Abbott. You're doing incredible work, Drew. Can't wait to see what this year has in store for you all season long on Christmas Day, and certainly the final week in January. Be rooting for you. Have a great year.
Sounds good. Thank you.